So one of the things we worry about when we're dealing with things in animation is that we've got to get people in their emotional center, in their feel, or in their heart. So often when working on expressions, what I would do is I would listen to music that was related to the emotional state. Not so much during the storyboarding phase or the layout phase that we're doing in class, where we want to have a little more of an intellectual handle on stuff. We may want to do a little more research. We may be worried a little more about composition than the overall feeling, right? The feeling side of what we're doing. When I would get to the point where I was drawing facial expressions, I really would try to get into the mood of the character. I would try to evoke memories. Because if you can feel something internally, you can apply that to your character very easily. So if someone was sad or something, that might be where I would immediately go. These days I think about like my children's reactions to things. So you want to think about your audience as far as what's going to matter to them. You may want to try to find memories that would relate to kind of a broader audience in general. You want to make sure that you're having that feeling. It's really critical that you place yourself into the mind of where someone is, just like an actor would. And again, one of the big things is we have to remember when we're working as animators is that more than anything else, we are actors, right? We are actors who are responsible for transporting someone to a given sort of reality. So take a moment and kind of think about that as you get into it. You usually feel acting through your entire body. You don't feel it just in your face. But just focusing on the face, even getting into just the head, you're going to think about kind of the tilt of the head, in addition to just the gross motor placement of it based off of, say, where your bit of acting is occurring, right? Like a character may have to look in this direction or, kind of look in this direction. Thinking in terms of things like head turns and things like that also, you want to think about like, what does it mean when someone in their acting touches their face? Well, classically, something like touching the face is thought of being a matter of dishonesty, right? But it can also be a matter of hesitation. Like someone doesn't want to do something. But it can also be pure dishonesty. Someone can, be doing one of these sideways smiles, going very basic with my drawing. Like, trust me, very deadpan, but they could be reaching up onto the face and touching their nose. Just kind of fiddling around with the face in general is considered to be a matter of dishonesty. So, just kind of like someone messing with their mouth. And while I'm doing this expression is definitely appearing on my own face. I definitely am making this expression while I'm drawing the character doing it. And that's something I recommend all of you do, is have that desire to place the expression on your face, or better yet, have that little small mirror next to you that you're using to kind of figure where stuff is. The head positioning, again, this is kind of like where the axis of the neck is, where the head attaches to the top of the cervical vertebrae. This is the start of the rib cage. This is the lumbar vertebrae. So all of this is very apparent in the line of action of this character that's going through their body. This, again, I can't stop a stress where all of this stuff is coming from, that you want to keep aware of this. This is the stuff you see when you sketch people from life. But getting into the expression itself, you can see I've kind of played around with it. It's very hard for me to visualize an expression without drawing the entirety of the body and then cutting in on the head. So many board artists, so many animators will want to just kind of focus in on just the facial expression, but what's happening through the whole body is important. They say that body language is 80% of communication, that 20% of what we say is there. So, keep that in mind. Now, thinking of like expressions, asymmetry is really critical. In the case of a lot of characters, the eyes only take up a small portion of the cranial skull, whereas the face takes up the majority of it here. And the eyes can just be very simple in how they convey an emotion. The rounder the eyes, the easier it is for someone to visualize the overall emotional state. We've already discussed that this muzzle area can distort radically without losing the impression of the character. The show Tiny Toons, a lot of basic animation takes advantage of this old kind of Fleischer animation principle of the mouth being highly mobile. It's just human common sense that the lower portion of the face is highly mobile. So a character like this is a classic kind of European cartoon versus an anime character, which is going to have a lot of expression in the eyes and minimal in the mouth. But let's start with the classical European cartoon. We discussed the idea of where expressions can go. Let's take it a little further with the notion of asymmetry. A mouth can kind of go all the way to the side here and still be fairly believable. The nose will drag a little bit as it's pulled off to the side. Here's the zygomatic arch, kind of the meat of the cheek, as that's pulled over here. So that's one potential expression. I'm going to Command or Control G group that, hit Command or hit V to pull that off to the side. So that's the sort of an expression. And there's the classic sort of expression that's occurring right underneath the mouth. We'll have it kind of be a little more deadpan, where the mouth might appear there. Just going through some basic expressions that we might see while drawing. Let's try like an extreme smile. This is more of an insincere smile. You can see just kind of looking at how this smile looks, that it's just off to the side of the face, but playing with asymmetry. Asymmetry is always a good thing to mess around with when you're working in animation, just because actors use it. Why shouldn't you take advantage of it? Okay, let's try a classic confused expression. That can be kind of more like up here, higher on the face, if it's supposed to be more of a confused intelligent character. If you want to make kind of a dullard expression, you would have that same thing occur, but kind of more towards the lower part of the mouth. Usually kind of like a Homer Simpson, huh? Total lack of comprehension. So just playing off of this, and you can visualize that this can squash and stretch depending on what you're after. Smug expression is going to occur higher up on the face, so anything from a smug smile. They use this a lot in SpongeBob to kind of make the characters funnier. So the content, the humor doesn't just have to come from the writing. Often it can also come from the acting. So let's try like a smug frown. You can see that still has a little more dignity than, say, something like this expression. This is more of a clownish sort of frown. I'm going to take it to an extreme. You can see like that just kind of feels sadder, and it also just loses some of that dignity that we might want in a character. So it's not just about the eyes, though the eyes are a very powerful method of acting. It's about this acting down at the bottom. And remember, this is kind of more classic animation acting as opposed to what we would see with more anime style these days.